Yeah, absolutely. One thing to note too is there are a couple more DTs in the mix here, and it doesn't look like BrokenRhythm has his Observer overhead. So those DTs doing a huge amount of damage. And here comes the Observer right now, although it looks like BrokenRhythm has already lost his whole army, and his Nexus once again going down. And it looks like your Marauders coming up from the back, you're doing a little damage, but your Marauders also being cut down by those DTs, and one scan going down, but unfortunately those DTs are able to get out of range, although the Observer is still overhead for BrokenRhythm. So trying to get in there, although running into the Stalkers of Hova, going to be forced to take those out before getting in there. And actually, one thing I did want to mention is that I don't see any medevacs from either you or WizardofMeth right now, and I'm just kind of curious with how heavy you guys are going on the infantry and using that stim pack ability. Why is it that there are no medevacs on the map right now?
I don't really think medevacs are that useful in this matchup. I'd rather spend my gas on siege tanks because, as you can see, I actually have a siege tank with my barrack spotting, and I'm managing to take out all of WizardofMeth's gas income at his natural. So he actually messaged me about this game afterwards, and he said that the gas, or me crippling his gas, was actually extremely detrimental to him. So I will be spending the majority of my gas on siege tanks because I really do need those siege tanks against High Templars. It really doesn't matter how many medevacs you have if High Templars, you know, do 80 damage to one unit, and it looks like Storm can hit about 4 or 5 Marauders. So that's like, you know, like 300 damage each Storm, so it really doesn't matter that a medevac can heal 4 health per second if you're taking like 300 damage per Storm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. And actually, one thing I did want to note is that it seems like this map has a lot of very Terran-favored features. One thing, just as you mentioned a little bit ago, that your siege tank from that cliff can reach the refineries for your opponent there on that low ground expansion. And then also the item that we mentioned a little bit earlier where those Reapers can jump across that little channel in the back. So in StarCraft 1, there were definitely maps that favored certain races, and to me it seems like this map favors the Terrans just a little bit. But WizardofMeth is getting a ninja expansion up at the top, trying to hide that one so that you and BrokenRhythm are not aware of it. And if he can get that secret economy going for a little bit here, especially getting those extra gases, then he will be in pretty good shape here. But anyways, looking at both players, or both teams rather, armies, it looks like everybody is trying to macro up a little bit from that loss. And of course, it seems like ALEEEEEEESA, your army is the largest out of everyone on the map right now, having 33 Marauders and 3 tanks to back those Marauders up.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the benefits of crippling the WizardofMeth's gas is that he went a little bit marine heavy. This is good and this is bad. It's good because it allows my siege tanks to actually pick out those marines very easily, but we do have a big battle going on. As you can see, those side storms completely wreck my Marauders. It looks like, yet again to me, that we would have lost this game at this point, but I am continuing to rally more units, and BrokenRhythm right now has his Nexus up yet again. I don't even know if he will be able to hold on this time, and I actually am putting down an armory at my base. Not sure if that's too relevant right now, but this bunker back at my base will allow me to defend against at least small numbers of units. And then I still have 3 Marauders on the field. BrokenRhythm has pure Stalkers against the majority of the composition of purple, which is just pure Marines. And I am moving my siege tank and my Marauders from the Zelnagatar that we recently controlled back to BrokenRhythm's base. And it looks like right now that my siege tank has excellent positioning, going to be able to splash down those weak Marauders. And it looks like I just barely managed to win this battle with 1 Marauder with 7 HP and 1 siege tank.
Yeah, and there are more Marauders and a siege tank from WizardofMeth moving out here as well now. It looks like rather than continuing to push on the front of your base, it is just going to siege up and try to fortify their position in the middle of the map to give them a little bit more map control. And meanwhile, the hidden expansion for WizardofMeth is now up and running. The command center is finished, and he has SCVs mining, not fully saturating the mineral line yet, and he does not yet have his gas up and running. But you do have a command center floating over to another expansion, and meanwhile, there are another group of units pushing in from Hova and WizardofMeth, once again continuing with Zealots and High Templars from the Protoss player Hova, and a great side storm on another group of Marauders, and getting even some side storms off on the tanks, which is going to soften them up significantly and allow the rest of that infantry army to kick it off. But meanwhile, there are some Zealots coming in the back here, picking off some of WizardofMeth's units that are a little bit too far away from the rest of the core army, and you guys once again managed to hold on by the skin of your teeth.
Yeah, definitely. And Zealots getting caught or catching Terran units out of position, especially without micro, is just extremely detrimental because WizardofMeth could have easily killed those Zealots. I'm sure those Marauders, yeah, the Marauders have Sim and Concussive, so the few number of Marauders and Siege Tanks could have probably taken on a much greater force of Zealots if he had microed. So a little bit of an unnecessary loss there, but anyway, I'm continuing to build more Marauders and more Siege Tanks. Right now I actually use my planetary fortress that I am building right now that I floated off and just pumping pure mules. Looking at my income right now, I am skyrocketing above everyone else just because of those mules. And I really do not like using mules when I have so much saturation at my base, just because it actually breaks down mineral patches extremely quickly, which decreases my my income by that much. So right now, BrokenRhythm gonna be trying to reinforce my siege tanks with his Zealot Sentry army, and the strength about this comes in that he can actually force field units away from my siege tanks. So we will be getting map control with these siege tanks. This is gonna be slowly degrading down to a Terran versus Terran, who has air control and who has sight and who has the most siege tanks, basically. It looks like right now that taking a look at the army size actually. Not APM, army, there we go. I actually do have the most number of most army, and I think this is because I did not lose my expansions at all. Well, I had to list it off, but I did not lose my expansion at all, and I had gotten it up relatively early. So right now I'm actually pushing the macro advantage, and we're going to be slowly doing a slow push with my siege tanks and marauders, along with BrokenRhythm, Zealot, and Sentry Sentry army.
Yeah, definitely, and it looks like there are a decent amount of units now massing for BrokenRhythm. It seems like he's always just barely had enough to deal with whatever's coming at him, although at this point he does have a decent amount of Sentries and Zealots going to be able to push out there. One thing, too, I did want to note, comparing between the two Protoss players on the map right now, Hova has researched the Zealot charge ability, whereas BrokenRhythm has not, and I'm kind of curious as to why BrokenRhythm does not use those upgrades, because Blink and Zealot charge are very useful, especially in the types of battles we're seeing here. The Zealot charge ability just makes Zealots so much more effective against both Marauders and Siege Tanks, although with this Zealot meat shield wall in front of those Marauders and Siege Tanks now, it's not going to be nearly as big of a factor in these battles. But another thing to note here is that WizardofMeth putting up yet another expansion, although a hallucinated Phoenix from BrokenRhythm is going to spot both of his expansions, and it looks like as well as the Nexus that Hova has just recently put up. So although they have more expansions than you guys right now, you guys are 100% aware of the expansions they have, while they are not aware, I'm sorry, they are aware of your expansion at this point. Although it looks like we are going to see a big battle in the middle ground here, and a large number of High Templars from Hova going to do some serious side storming on that infantry army, doing a lot of damage to the Zealots as well.
Yeah, but if you had looked, I stemmed my Marauders out of the way, so I did not take a run at the side storms, and the power of staggered siege tanks really do come in. We decisively won that battle with the staggered siege tanks, and by staggered I just mean that your siege tanks are not all clumped together and they are spread out, and this makes it extremely hard to focus down siege tanks. And also, the more siege tanks you want to kill, the more damage you're going to take, because the siege tanks in the back will start shooting. So right now you see that I'm still doing the siege tank slow push, going to be staggering the siege tanks as much as I can, spraying them out as much as I can too. And this just makes it extremely difficult. This is one of the most difficult ground armies to deal with ground units, Marauders and siege tanks. And BrokenRhythm right now has just massing pure Zealots. I don't really care what BrokenRhythm is getting, just as long as they can do damage and they can tank for my siege tanks. But right now, because right now the siege tanks and Marauders are basically just going to be the meat of this army, and it's going to be providing the majority of the damage. And if you look at my base actually, WizardofMeth actually sent a few Cloak Banshees and took out the siege tank there, but I really did not have anything. Right now he does have 3 Cloak Banshees in, and I do think that BrokenRhythm's server and a scan going down, so for that Archon is going to be able to take on tons of Banshees. And still more nice storms, but he just did not have the storm power. Right now I'm focusing on Hova's Nexus, and it looks like this is going to be game, because it just does not seem like WizardofMeth and Hova can match the army size right now that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. You and BrokenRhythm definitely making a good push here. And I actually wanted to mention that staggered siege tank push is very reminiscent of Starcraft 1. That was really what a lot of the Terran players were known for. The very good Terran players like Flash and Jinro were really known for their siege tank pushes and just being able to slowly move their army across the map, sieging and unsieging tanks, moving the ones from the back into the front, building turrets and moving the units along with the siege tanks the whole way until they're basically on the front doorstep of their enemy, which is exactly what you guys did there. So I love seeing those old school kind of pushes and builds in StarCraft 2 because it shows how good of a job the StarCraft 2 development team did of keeping that nostalgic feel from the original game.
Yeah, definitely. And at this point, we knew we had to push because Wizard of Meth was essentially operating off a 4 base. BrokenRhythm was almost mined out at its natural. He had no plans of getting a third just yet. So that was one of our few chances to push, and also because of the Banshees that Wizard of Meth had in our base, we barely dealt with it. But those Banshees, if they went to my natural with the my third with the planetary fortress, would have caused terrible damage, as that was my only source of income at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. A great game from both you and BrokenRhythm.
And my name is ALEEEEEEESA with 8 E's, and I'll see you guys later.